So I'm here shooting a softball game. My buddy Nick is with me. Nick and I are going to be doing videos together really soon here on Kennedy slash Caveman Visuals YouTube something or other, something. Anyway, the Sigma 65 millimeter is a heck of a lens. I'm using it here to shoot from the edge of the through the fence, frankly, and the lens is absolutely incredible, perfect at home plate, and it's going to be a great lens to be able to crop because the quality is just so fantastic. So Dave in the studio here. One of the things I do need to mention about the 65, and I did kind of, but it is a perfect length, and the front element, the front of the lens, is the perfect diameter really to shoot through your average kind of cyclone fencing, I guess you'd say. I shoot through a lot of fence here for the newspaper, for high school sports, and specifically for softball. This lens really is, at many of the fields that I shoot at, the perfect length for shooting behind home plate or off to the side of home plate, like you saw me in this earlier video that I shot kind of on the field recently. So the two things, I mean, obviously the distance between the fence behind home plate and home plate for softball does change from field to field, but in general, this feels like a really great lens for that specific use case. As well as I mentioned, the diameter of the front of that lens is perfect for pretty much every softball game that I shoot here in the area. I work in north central Pennsylvania, and it will fit. If you have to be careful when you're doing this, obviously, but you can get the effect of not shooting through the fence at all then if you can get that front element kind of centered in the fence. And I did want to highlight this because I'm going to be posting this video about kind of the 65, but also about shooting through fences as well, because this is something that's very common for baseball, for softball, for youth sports of really any kind. Not obviously pro baseball, because the fencing usually there is a mesh fence that's not a wire metal fence. So in most use cases for the average photographer out there, getting not only the 65 but any kind of normal length lens is a real there's a real benefit to that, and certainly trying to figure out what lenses you would need in your area that you're going to shoot at time after time after time is a really good way to kind of get around being stuck behind a fence, quite frankly. So if for example, if you're someone who's shooting your family, your kid at softball, at baseball, little league even, and you're going to be shooting for a few years, if your kid's in softball or little league, then you're probably going to want, as a parent, to be photographing through a fence for that kid's entire career, which will probably end in high school, for the average person, naturally. So getting a small enough front diameter lens would be a benefit for that. So any 50 millimeter lens, some 40 millimeter lenses like the GM 40 millimeter f2.5 that Sony makes, the 50 millimeter 2.5 G, sorry, I said GM, the G lenses, 40 millimeter, 50 millimeter 2.5 G. I have that, and I do use it for certain softball games where I know that the fence is pretty close to home plate. And a 65 might be a little too tight for that, but many of the fields that I shoot at, this 65 is absolutely perfect for that. So like I said, if that's a consideration, you're going to be shooting for years to come your kids' games, and that it's always going to be an easy picture, especially if you get something like a 50 1.8, the nifty 50 as YouTubers seem to call it now. That lens will be able to be something that you can get a ton of use out of, and they don't cost a lot of money. So look into those. Certainly look into Sigma's contemporary series of primes. They're jewel-like little metal lenses like the 65 that I have here, and I'll show you a picture of it again of me kind of shooting through the fence still again. And the other lenses that they make, I think they make a 45, they make a 50, they make a 90 as well. Any of those lenses, they make a 35. Any of those lenses more than likely will be able, because they have such a small front diameter, the filter size, you can tell probably something less than a 72 millimeter front filter diameter. It's like a 68 or a 58 or 55, any of those probably will fit through the chain link fence that you will be getting at any high school, little league, as I've said now multiple times. Thank you very much for joining me for this additional part to the video, probably with a little more information, a little more useful information than the first part, but hey, you know, we do what we can while we're in the field actually working at a game. Pretty much every day. I have a game nearly every day of the week that I can shoot for sure. Thank you for coming back to the channel again. I will be, as I mentioned, teaming up with my friend Nick, who is also a full-time shooter. They have a local portrait studio, they being him, his wife, and his daughter. And I do freelance for them from time to time. They do sports, youth sports and high school sports, a lot of pose stuff, which I help them with, and action as well. And they have a tremendous amount of experience doing what a lot of folks do out there with sports photography, is kind of doing that, youth sports stuff. And which has not really been my area. My area has usually been kind of editorial. So I will be teaming up with Nick to do some videos here and some reviews and just chats that he and I will talk about kind of the nuts and bolts of really doing sports photography, paid sports photography for a living. Because I'm kind of the editorial side of it, as well as, I said, a bit of the portrait kind of side of it, like action and team and individuals, as they call it. And they are more based on the idea of, as I said, shooting the kind of pose stuff. Thanks again. You'll be seeing those videos upcoming fairly soon. See you later, folks.